Good morning, and good morning. Okay, today I am crazy with, you know, my internet just stopped bringing me any connection to you all, and I'm saying, well, what's going on? So the last 15 minutes I've been trying to get in, and finally they let me in and gave me a signal that I could work with. So, good morning. Sorry I'm running a little late, but I am here. I am here. And the day's word is mid, MID. So simple. New word to the dictionary, but sometimes we are just that. Hey, Deb, thanks for waiting around. It is just so weird, but I just couldn't get in, and Google kicked me out because I guess it was not giving me the right signal. And finally I got in. So thank you. It says I sent you an instant message wondering if I am okay. Yes, but a lot of times technology will keep you from getting where you need to go. And that's what it was doing to me, making me mad. And I'm not going to tell you what I was saying, Debbie. I wasn't cussing, but I was mad. I was like, what in the world? But anyway, good morning to anyone that's listening. I know I always have a lot of people on the sidelines that listen, but thank you so much. But anyway, today I want to start off with just giving you a little history on a woman in history that we probably don't know that much about because someone else became more famous than she did, doing pretty much the same thing, which is Rosa Parks became more famous for not getting up off her seat on the bus. Where let me turn this off where it says not now. Let me put that not now. Let me just hit that. Um, After they lock you out, then they want to question you about it. You locked me out. Why'd you lock me out? But anyway, then the woman's name is Claudette Colvin. Claudette Colvin. She was the teenage civil rights activist. But anyway, here's her little story, and it's real quick. It says, too tired to give up her seat on the bus from high school on March 2nd, 1955, Claudette Colvin refused to move for a white passenger 9 months before Rosa Parks would do the same. Later, she said that she felt inspired by the memories of earlier pioneers to stand or sit for her ground. As she told Newsweek, I felt like Sojourner Truth was pushing down on one shoulder and Harriet Tubman was pushing down on the other, saying, sit down, girl. I was glued to my seat. It says this 15-year-old Colvin was arrested for violating Montgomery, Alabama's segregation laws, and her family feared for their safety as news of the incident spread. It says Colvin pled not guilty and was given probation, while Colvin wasn't selected by the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, which at then and still now is called NAACP, to challenge segregation laws in the South due to her youth. She later became one of the four plaintiffs in Brower versus Gale, which ruled that Montgomery's segregated bus system was unconstitutional. So sometimes we never know if one little incident may, create a firestorm or a piece of history that becomes memorable. We remembered Rosa Parks, but here it was done, 8 months prior to Rosa Parks ever doing it. So anyway, my word is real short today. I'm glad for that since I was late. And once again, I do apologize for being late. Good morning, Barbara. How are you doing? Good morning. Good morning. Anyway, today the word is mid. And mid, even though we've heard middle and all these other words that obviously mid is a derivative of, it talks about being part in the middle or in the midst of the middle. And it is a new word to the dictionary. What I'm finding is that the younger generation, I'll call it the socialized generation, has been much more interested in reducing the amount of letters and words that they may use to describe something that we took a lot of words to describe, or the word was longer in its length. So this one is mid, and it says occupying a position equally distanced from the ends or the extremes. So like if I'm in the middle, that means I'm probably going to be average, which a lot of us are. We're just average people. We're not the extreme. We're not the poorest. We're not the richest. We're not the smartest. We're not the least, able to think of things. We're not at those extremes. We're someplace in the middle, which makes us, average. When you think about it, it makes sense. And it says occupying a position equally distanced from the ends or extremes. We are basically it's considered mediocre, mediocre, unimpressive, sometimes disappointing, because there's some people who never want to be in the middle. Now I gotta tell you something. When I'm riding on the plane, I do not want to be in the middle. But every once in a while, when I've had to get back to New York, if there's, sickness or an issue going on that I've had to go back up there for, okay, I'm in the middle. I'll take a middle seat. And the middle seat, mind you, costs just as much as them end seats on each side of you. But you're in the middle. So basically, you're fighting for armrests. You're fighting for foot space. And if you come in the middle, a lot of times people, they're kind of irritated that they had to get up to let you in the first place. But that is the way life is. Sometimes we are in the middle and we make a problem just trying to get to the middle, okay, or get out of the middle. But yes, midst would be a wonderful word. It says basically it is halfway between the points or the ends. It's the intermediate and it's the central point. So when I move down the word mezzo, I like that. Mezzo, that's good. Like a mezzo soprano, meaning they're above an alto. See, there you go. Got me in my music again. Above an alto and below a first soprano. So they're mezzo. They're between the two. But I wrote for my M is in the middle. Okay, middle as a mean. Remember, did you take the mean and the mode and all of that kind of stuff and the average added that? Remember all of that? I don't know how I got out of that class, but I made it. I ended up with an A, and only because I had to take it by itself. To statistics, I had to take it by itself. It was just crazy by, trying to take it with other classes. And I knew enough to withdraw and then take it again. That's how I ended up managing to do well in it, but it was a crazy class. But the middle says that it is the mean. It is the central point. It says between extremes. It says it's the midpoint, the norm, the average, and the standard. Let's face it, that's how many of us live our lives, is on the middle. We are not at the extremes, thank God. I don't want it to be at the extreme bottom. And to be honest with you, I don't know if I want to be at the extreme top. Oh, yeah, I'd like to certainly make above the middle. Let's face it. I like to be, at a point where I'm very comfortable. But I don't know if I want to be, comfortable to the point where, everybody's looking for me. Everybody knows my name. Everybody knows that, I have X amount of dollars because I'm on the Forbes, list of the richest people. First of all, I know that will never be me. If my name's on there, it's wrong. They made a mistake, okay? Made a mistake. I'm still in the middle. I would still be in the middle, but that's what the middle is. So that's what our M is. Our M is our middle. If you were determined where you are in your life, in your whatever you've done in terms of your experiences, your exposure, your existence, would you say you're in the middle? I'm in the middle. Okay, I'm not going to say that I'm at those extremes. And I'll say thank God for that. Thank God I'm not at the extremes where I become target on one side and victim on another, or victim and target on either side. Because sometimes that's the way we see things. We see things that are more visible to us as being illuminated. Such as every time, and I have a bleeding heart. So every time I pass someone by the street on the street, and I try to help, but I can't help everybody that's out there. There's too many people. There's too many people. I mean, when I first, you know, paying a lot of attention to it, there might have only been a few. And I remember even trying to help one guy had a sandwich one day, and I'm not a big eater, not like I used to be. And so I had a sandwich, it had never been touched. I asked him to wrap it. And I gave them the sandwich, and he wanted money. He threw the sandwich at my car. So sometimes you can only help, those who understand that your goodwill it comes with good intention. But I just say, well, I just allow myself to remain humble in my middle. Remaining humble is a good thing. It says that I would remain average, I'm more at the norm, and I'm standardized. That's me, I'm standard. When I move on in the word of mid, which is MID, instead of saying middle, that's my intermediate. It says intermediate, as it is an average, about midway between extremes of amount or size. That's most of us. Intermediate. You got the same word. There you go. Intermediate. You could almost use other words for that. Like you could say you're at a certain interval in your life, or in your your desires or your ambitions, or your or maybe even at the point where you're moving forward and trying to get to a higher level. Interior. Oh, that's good too. Good morning, Erica. How are you doing, sweet pea? Today our word is mid, which is a derivative of saying middle. But as I was explaining, younger people aren't going to use that. They don't have to use middle. So a lot of the words that are in the dictionary now are words we would consider abbreviated words, or they've become so utilized in the social realm of media that we end up understanding what they mean, like HWU, how are you? Just learning that we can cut down on the amount of words we use to say the same thing. Intermission, that's good. That is good, because sometimes it is an intermission, where we separate. For us having ability to know everything, we just know just enough. Okay, so we'll take mid versus middle, and we understand that. The interesting thing, I was talking to some other, I'll call them eggheads. We were talking the other day, and one of the things we said is that this will eventually, the generation that comes behind even the youngest generation now, will they be much more social languaging as opposed to intellectual languaging, but yet and still it will still be conversational language. So to me, that's interesting, because I've listened to some people on their podcasts and radio stations and whatever, and I don't understand everything they're saying. And the reason I don't is because I'm old school, and I'm going to use a sentence as it should be structured. That's how I write. That's how, so even in these same young people, you almost have to wonder, well, how will they get through the rigors of academia? If they decide to go on for an education, how will they do it if standardized education, especially in higher ed, and especially if you're talking about doing anything at the bachelor's, master's, and even the associate levels, are all requiring people to know things. I just would love to be on a doctoral panel 20 years from now. I've been on one before, and they're very testy and time consuming, and such a requirement to say, oh my God, this person entered this field, and ultimately, they will become a doctor if their committee and their lead chair really is looking out for their good interests and the school's interests. You're looking out in such a way. And I mean, it's just so interesting to me. So I would love to be on one of those panels later on and just say, wow, that's interesting, of how they they made that work. But then how would you have to train the panel again? You have to train the panel to understand the new language. But I don't know if will it make it into the academic realm. I'm not sure. But intermediate in this whole, good morning, Quanis, in this whole idea of what mid, our word is mid, MID, which this started because it's a new word in the dictionary that basically doesn't use middle anymore. Well, use middle for those who was to speak the full word. It just makes it where it just made a smaller word to mean the same thing. They said, oh, they're in the mid. So now you understand that they don't have to say middle. They don't have to even say intermediate. They could just say mid, you know. But I said intermediate, and it says that's the average in the midway between these extreme points or amount or even the size. It said it is the average. It's the modest. It could be the typical. It could be the reasonable, the mid-sized, and the normal. When we think about words, we really look at how are words changing, not necessarily the meaning, but the words that are being used to arrive at the same meaning are very interesting to me. It says AI will write their thesis for them. Not sure how they will be able to verbally communicate. That's true. Now, here's the thing about the AI, which is the artificial intelligence. What I worry about, well, and I don't know if that even may be a concern, because eventually it will be determined, just like they do now. They can go online, and there's certain systems within the, I'd say within the purview of the school, universities, the colleges, where they can go on and they can identify plagiarism immediately. They know if somebody else said it. And if it's not cited properly, then it will be so indicated. So I think, Juan, is that you're on to something, but I don't know if they will be an acceptable, because if AI created their thesis, if AI created their dissertations, I don't believe that those will be, I believe they can be verified to be plagiaristic, because if they didn't say it, then to me, it loses its significance of what was done. Not necessarily of the study, if the study was certainly done by them, but in terms of how it may be written up, and if someone else has already done it and it's being created by, a computer, then wow, it's no longer the human thought or the human computer. It's really somebody else doing it. But that's an interesting thought, though, ladies, isn't it? My goodness, my goodness. Good morning, Ardelia. Too much use of acronyms. That's right. I worked for the government for 32 years. And 32 years, I was the most acronymed individual ever. If I didn't know it, then I had to learn it. And I remember the area that I covered, I actually created a list of acronyms for everyone to know. Just like ASE, Automotive Services Excellence. After a while, I got to the point where I could just speak it like it was my regular language. That's what certainly I feel young people are doing. They're figuring out, how will I get through the rigors of understanding every single thing I'm doing, and be able to do it in such a way that it makes sense, and that all of it that we pay attention to it. Difficult. It's difficult because we don't know what's real and what's not real. Who said it? And they go back through all of the, the books. You would be surprised at how connected AI is with what's already been done by other people. And also just in terms of historical facts. You can probably Google anybody's name, whoever made up Google, basically it's dictionary on steroids. They got to be some rich people, okay? Because that information is absolutely, it's amazing to me that you can look up different words all the time, different meanings. What does it mean? In fact, I had been having trouble with my right eye, and I kept trying to treat it myself, thinking that I'm the eye doctor, the ophthalmologist, and I could never get in to see them. So finally, I went to the ER the day before yesterday, and the doctor had me there 3 hours doing a whole bunch of stuff and tell me it was this and that. And he thought that I had conjunctivitis. Well, because I know that I have trouble with my eyes and I've always had them since being a little girl, I knew it wasn't that. And I tried to figure it out. I said, well, okay, that's not true. So he told me I had conjunctivitis and gave me some erythromycin ointment. Well, it calmed it down and everything, but they got me because I was a patient of the doctor at that hospital. They made sure I got in yesterday to see him. And so when I went to see them yesterday, they said, well, why didn't you come directly to us? I said, I tried to, couldn't get in. There was no appointments available, and they kept putting me off and said they'd call me back, and no one ever called me back. So I had to take matters in my own hands. Well, it ended up that I did not have conjunctivitis, that I have this thing called scleritis. I think that's how you say it. But it's basically not the top lens of the eye, but the second lens behind it, and when it gets irritated. And they said, like, conditions such as we have a lot of pollen, and that's how long it's been going on, since the pollen started. But we never realized that if you're dealing from a level where you're the intermediate, you may not be able to get to the top. You may not be able to get to the person that really can help you yet, until you take matters in your own hands and decide a way to go. And basically that's what I did. I figured out how I needed to go get it. But when we move on in our word of mid, which means in the middle, I have, and this, well, let me see what you have for your D. What would you put down for a D of being in the middle? I don't think anybody will put down what I wrote, because it is kind of interesting that I looked at it that way. Let's see. Dead center. I didn't write that, but that's good. That is good. Advocating for yourself is so important. It is. It is. It is so. You're so right, Michelle. It is. You got to advocate, sir. What is the word? The word is MID, mid. MID. And mid means being at the part in the middle, or in the midst, as in the middle. So here's the thing. As I was saying, young people have decided that they've redefined how they need to say make a big word shorter. Or a bigger word. So middle became mid, just like I was telling you 2 weeks ago, I did Raz. Okay. And they say a person has Riz. And it ends up being, it's from the word charisma, but they took out the k and ma, and they ended up just saying they have Riz. Here you go. So what will we be speaking later on in life, and if we don't stay up, what will we be doing? Feeling that there's a gap between this generation and the generations and the later generations. Determined, decisive. Oh, these are all good. Definite, dead center, during. I put down dangle. Dangle. You think about it. When you have something that's hanging, it may dangle from the end or the other end, either end, but most of the time it says a dangle, as in hang, to place and elevate it. And it says it's suspended. That's what I look at being. I look at that's good. I look at being basically from an older generation, dealing with a younger generation, and dealing with the oldest generation. So I feel I'm dangling in the middle. So I need to take some information from the young people, information from the older people, and put it together. That puts me midway through. And that makes me dangle, because sometimes I may shift like a dangle. I may shift a little bit to the right. I may shift a little bit to the left. So that's how I looked at the word. Depleted. Oh, I like that. Division. Oh, these are all good. Dullness. Well, I put dangle, and it says as in to hang, to place on or elevated point without support from the below. And sometimes, is that not how we feel? We're in the middle, we're trying to figure our way out. I couldn't get directly to the doctor, so I had to go through the ER in order to get to the doctor's office. Sometimes we have to figure out other ways. Dangle said, Dangle says it all. So anyway, that's my little weirdness of how I think. I just thought that it made sense to me that if I can't get up there or if I can't get down there, how will I do it? Well, if I suspend myself and rock back, I'm gonna go where I can go. I'm gonna get where I can get. And so it says a dangle is to hang, to swing, to suspend, to drape, and to sling. And I think in our lives, sometimes we don't realize we do all of that. We do all of that. And a lot of times we play in the middle really well, where we are covering a lot of distance between that middle. Because sometimes we may get up near the top, but we're not the top. We may get near the bottom, but we're not the bottom. Because I feel there's always somebody going to be under and somebody's going to be over us. I'm always thought of myself of being okay with the middle. I've always been okay. Because you think about it, the middle also gives you a little bit of protection. A little bit. I didn't say a lot. It just gives you a little bit of protection that you may not be the first one they come to. You may not be the first one that is seen or recognized or consulted. Okay, that's good. And then if you're lower towards the bottom, you know that you're further down the line of being accessible. Okay. But yet and still, if it's something that's dealing with what is hurting, violating, basically abusing whoever's down there, then you might be the first one to be talked to. Such as every time I see the news on TV and they're talking to, homeless people or talking to people that have, had a bad way in life, and you listen to them and you understand that when they have an opportunity to rise, they would, but they're trying to tell people what will help them rise. Better housing, more access to food, but then let food be cheaper to purchase, and, having, a steady, source of income as employment, those kind of things. I think dangling right now. I think I'm dangling right now. I just read that. No. Hey, dangling is good. Thank you, guys. But anyway, I made it kind of simple today. I didn't know I was going to be locked out the system, but I was locked out. So I couldn't even post it on Facebook because it just, I don't know, just between Google and, my service today, everything was kind of messed up. But I don't know if any of you have AT&T, but AT&T went kind of wonky last week too. And they never really explained that, okay? They never explained it. Let's see it. Delia says, to make young people think, question what they are saying, ask what does that mean? I have, and a lot of times they will tell you what it means, but it's in young people format. That's how they address things. They don't look at things the way, the typical education has been in England and America. They look at education totally different. And it's not even because we don't even look at it the classic way, because the classic way just deals differently with education, because they look more at what it is that is being, gathered within the environment that they're at, and how would they interact with it and understand it. So they play it backwards. It's like they're going to ask them to set the questions and and state the sentences, whereas we set the questions and state it if we're teachers in the traditional sense in America. So it's really interesting, very, very interesting. It says, if you're dangling, you're just figuring out which way to go. You have not, you have not lied there. You have not. That's true. Because most of us have every single day, we dangle when we even decide, when we get in our car, which route we're going to take. I remember at one time when crazy things were going on in the world, and they were given, don't go the same route every day, and don't come in this door at this time, and we understood what the limitations were. We were in the middle of trying to be protected by the different agencies and forces in charge. And then we think about it. The same thing with COVID. COVID kind of did the same kind of thing. It left us in that cocoon of being, safe. And so, I find that once we came out of that, and some people are still in it, and a lot of times even your young people are dealing in such a way that they are looking at, the future and the present all in the same. They're not going to worry about separating. What we're looking at, let me get through this before I get to my future. They're looking ahead, they're looking now, and they're looking like, well, yeah, what and how does that benefit me? I mean, I've had some of them ask me, well, Doc, how does that benefit me? Now, they do like talking to me. I enjoy them. I enjoy them. But look, but anyway, I want y'all to have a wonderful, wonderful. I made it through for 9:39, so that's good. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and hopefully, I will not be knocked out of power or whatever was going on with them giving me my access to my account today. But my bill is paid. Okay, so I do pay my bills. But anyway, have a wonderful weekend. If you don't do anything else, if you do one thing for me, hit that share button and let them know, because I do see more traffic, and I don't necessarily see it because I know I'm doing this during the time that most people are at work, but I see a lot of traffic after, so it's wonderful, and I appreciate every one of you for doing this. Have a great weekend. You too, Megan, aka. Anyway, you guys be there. Have a fantastic weekend. I'm just reading everybody's stuff. Thank you. Love you guys. Bye-bye. Thanks.